I picked up this old green painted dresser for $50 at a yard sale a few weeks ago. On the very same day I found this other one for just $10. Ironically, both had been used as nursery changing tables not long ago, and while this one wasn't much to look at, honestly I didn't even find it visually appealing at all. Something about it still caught my attention. I guess maybe it was the challenge of stripping away all the paint just to see if there's something beautiful hidden underneath. I'm truly grateful, but there are still days when I just don't feel like doing this work anymore. Sometimes I allow my thoughts to get in my own way. You know what I mean? Lately I've been thinking about all the opportunities I've walked away from in life, not because they weren't worth it, but because they just felt too difficult at the time. I don't know what to expect this time around, but today I'm going to face this challenge head on and see what it might teach me about the work and about myself. With every painted furniture piece, I always test the paint for lead. It's unlikely with this one since the seller sent the extra paint with me, but I'll still test several areas in case there's an old layer of paint underneath. I wonder who else at some point found great satisfaction from working on projects like this. Something hands-on and in some way meaningful. Maybe not even restoring furniture. Maybe sewing, gardening, woodworking, or even painting furniture. But then maybe life got in the way, responsibilities piled up, or priorities just shifted. That's when the weeds slowly take over, and the dust begins to collect, and the things that once brought joy slowly fade into the background. Sometimes we stop doing the simple things that once made us feel most alive. Sadly, for some, it's losing the one we share those moments with. So what's it going to take to get that back? Here in my workshop, I'm surrounded by collectible furniture pieces. And yet, I found myself staring at this humble dresser, wondering, could something this basic, something that might only be worth a few $100s once refinished, still teach me a valuable lesson through the process of restoration? This chemical stripper is effective in about 30 minutes, and I'll scrape off most of the paint in the direction of the wood grain. To neutralize and remove the paint stripper, I'll scrub each section with afterwash and No. 2 steel wool. With its basic design, it's obvious this dresser was built purely for function. My guess is it was manufactured sometime during the Depression era. While I had this dresser turned on its side, I noticed this writing, likely from the factory. I think this says maple, but truthfully, I found it difficult to identify this wood species throughout the entire project. The original finish under this paint is dark, which may have been used to cover up a less desirable species, like elm or poplar. But this time, I'll rely on your help in the comments to determine the wood species. My restoration channel is all about sharing the skills that I've enjoyed learning, and I'm genuinely excited to share with you something else I've been working on, thanks to today's sponsor, Skillshare. Not long ago I restored a few cast iron skillets, and I use them often. Today I'm making a high-protein beef and sweet potato hash. It's simple, hearty, and delicious. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creatives, by creatives. I've been focusing on eating healthier and building better habits in the kitchen. The structured classes on Skillshare have already helped me discover new recipes and sharpen my basic skills. Right now I'm taking a knife skills class with Ilana Karp, and it's been a game changer. I love how the classes are structured in simple outlines, making them easy to follow. With expert instructors sharing practical tips, I was able to grow my skills at my own pace. As you'll see, my knife skills are lacking, and I wish I had seen this class sooner. Skillshare also has thousands of classes about woodworking, sewing, knitting, filmmaking, storytelling, and so much more. So whether you're starting a new venture or just looking to level up your skills, Skillshare can help you unlock your potential. I would encourage you to check out Skillshare to see if they offer classes related to your own specific interests. The first 500 people to use my link in the video description will receive 20% off their first year of Skillshare. So get started today, and thank you Skillshare for sponsoring this video. This dresser is mostly solid wood, so once the paint stripper is removed, using a pressure washer to clean this off shouldn't do any harm as long as this sits outside to dry quickly. I'll first clean the hardware in this mixture of water and vinegar at medium to high heat, bringing this close to a boil. While I'm waiting, I'll use several carbide scrapers to continue removing the excess paint. This should help reduce the amount of sanding discs needed later. I don't see any thin layers of veneer, so I'll first start sanding with the 5-inch orbital sander, using 80 grit sanding discs. After about 15 to 20 minutes, I'll begin removing the hardware and attempting to clean it, removing the paint with a vinyl brush and a fine brass brush. I can't say for sure, but I think these pieces were all stamped out of thin sheets of brass or copper. This protective coat on the drawer pulls was difficult to remove with a brush, so I'll use the benchtop buffer and a fine wire wheel to remove what's left. These are beginning to look better, but I'll need to do more work on them in a moment. I'll continue sanding the large, flat surfaces with the Surf Prep orbital sander, but this time with 120 grit 5-inch sanding discs. I'll continue covering as much surface area as possible with the orbital sander since it's more efficient, but I'll have to come back to these detailed areas with the Surf Prep 3x4 sander and some hand sanding blocks. As I continue sharing my work and parts of my story, I'm not trying to say anything profound. That's never the goal. I'm just giving voice to the quiet, everyday thoughts that come to me while I work in silence, wondering if maybe you've had similar thoughts too. I mostly worked on this project in silence, as I often do, but over the last few days, I had several visitors to my workshop. Some of the conversations about furniture restoration led to this thought. Here's what I've come to believe. Most of us live ordinary lives. Some people amass a small fortune, while others learn to just scrape by. But regardless of where we land on that spectrum, all of us, at some point, get caught up. We get busy, distracted by responsibilities, preoccupied with routines that were never meant to define us. And I'll come back to that thought in just a moment. For the final sanding with 150 grit, I'll use a sanding block, the palm sander, and a few sanding sponges. I'll first use the rigid palm sander to knock down all the sharp edges. I'll also do several passes in the direction of the wood grain to eliminate any possible swirl marks left behind from the orbital sander. And finally, the sponge pad will help conform to all the different profiles on this dresser. It's often during these steps that I still find some areas where there's paint left behind. I tried a lot of different stains and protective finishes on old furniture. Having learned from others recently, I find myself being drawn to natural finishes like shellac or lacquer. Several weeks ago, I learned to mix a 3-pound cut of shellac using shellac flakes and denatured alcohol. I'll use a bristle brush to apply thin coats of shellac to the drawer fronts and the entire dresser body. Although a very basic dresser, I think by applying just a clear coat over the natural wood grain will not only enhance the beauty of the grain patterns, but also preserve some of the character of this old piece. Perhaps there's a better way, but the only way I could think to get some of these dents out of the hardware was to slide these back and forth across the round end of a hammer. Certainly not perfect, but they are much better. Since the clear shellac is a light finish, applying an antique brown furniture wax polish will not only add an extra layer of protection, but also help give this piece more depth and color. Applying this with a Scotch-Brite pad will help cut down the sheen and the texture of the shellac. After about 30 minutes, I'll use an open weave cotton rag to buff the wax. As the years go by, maybe we finally begin to slow down, and we start to see things differently. We find ourselves coming back to the things we once loved to do. Maybe then we realize that an ordinary life, lived with honesty, with love, and with quiet perseverance, can actually be quite extraordinary. I don't know, maybe that's what this basic dresser was trying to show me all along. My name is Barry, and thanks for joining me. Goodbye for now.